Hello and welcome to Paul and Ted's Talk Time. This is Ted and I'm Paul, and today we're going to be talking about the meaning of life.
Well, there we go. That's a big one. Meaning of life. Got a handle on that one, have you, Paul?
No, I can't say I have. What do we actually mean by that?
The reason why we're here, I guess.
Existence? The reason for our
what
existence?
are we supposed to be doing? I mean, nobody knows what they're supposed to be doing, so we invent stuff, don't we? Like, we've got to go out and buy a house, make some money, procreate, have families, kids, do this, do that. I mean, we've got lots of things going on, but do we have a meaning to any of it?
Well, it kind of ties in with our video that we did on life after death a little bit, doesn't it? I mean, it's kind of...
It's the bit before, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I've been recently watching one of these videos whereby it kind of gives you an idea of the expanse of the observable universe.
Right, and he sent me this video, and it's actually kind of fascinating because basically what it shows is how minute where we are is compared to the rest of the galaxy, solar system, and other solar systems and what have you. So there's a lot going on out there which we don't know.
Well, to put it into perspective for our viewers, they estimate that in the observable universe there are 2 trillion galaxies.
Right. 2 trillion. That's
2 trillion galaxies in our observable universe. Now, each of these galaxies can range anywhere between 100,000 light years.
Light years is the time
it takes light to travel over 1 year.
Oh man, that's big.
Yeah. That's just one galaxy.
Okay? Right, one galaxy.
One galaxy, and they estimate 2 trillion galaxies. And if you think of it in terms of grains of sand on the Earth, there are more stars in these 2 trillion galaxies than there are grains of sand on this Earth.
Okay, but apart from sort of, confirming the fact that we're a drop in the ocean.
Well, not even that. I mean,
but how does that help us figure out the meaning of life and why we're here? And is there anybody who cares? It's a big one, isn't it? Are we supposed to be doing something which we don't know about? Or are we supposed to be figuring this all out ourselves? Because we're very busy doing this and that. But have we got it all wrong? Is there something else we should be doing?
Well, I think people just create and invent their own meanings of life, don't they? And they do it in all shapes and forms, like religion.
Well, religion's the big one, isn't it? Because the religion basically is like the sort of the stepping stone between this life and the next life. And of course, back in the old days when people didn't live quite so long, you were dying in your mid-20s and 30s for various different reasons, basically they didn't have cures for a lot of things. So therefore you needed to get an idea on what was coming up next quickly. So that would make religion a whole lot more relevant than perhaps it is today when, you're living 60s, 70s, 80s and beyond, So that makes sense.
I think getting back to the point you just made, how does it help us? I think it throws it firmly and squarely into perspective just how insignificant even our belief systems are within the context of that massive observable universe that we're in. People, we focus in on these religious or philosophical beliefs or all the beliefs that you can think of, but really, in the grand scheme of things, they're even just tiny little.
But isn't it sort of like one of many things which we invent just to keep ourselves busy? Like, how am I going to meet my mortgage payments this month? And these things we kind of get involved in, I remember, what did John Lennon, he says, life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. Well, isn't that the case? I mean, we don't actually ever sit down to consider, is there something we should be doing in life? Is there something we're missing here? I mean, do we ever do this? I don't think we ever have time to do that.
Yeah, it's a big one, isn't it? I mean, I really struggle with this one. I mean, but I think so many of us are wrapped up in our little trivia, like getting our houses done. Take me as an example, we kind of want to get the house done, little things
Yeah,
like
but
that.
what's the alternative? I mean, sitting there contemplating what? Contemplating the meaning of life. That's what my mum always used to say. And I said, what are you doing? She said, I'm contemplating the meaning of life, which means I'm not doing anything effectively. And I don't think we actually we actually do this, do we?
So what's the purpose of your existence then?
Well, I haven't the foggiest idea. So, you wake up in the morning and you have a bunch of things to do. You go out and do them, and then you get tired, and then you go back to sleep again, and then you wake up and do whatever you need to be doing the next day, and eventually you drop dead. And beyond that, I really don't see what else is going on. I mean, I haven't figured it out. Have you?
No, not at all. I mean,
So what about philosophers and what have you? People who reckon they got a sort of an idea on what was going on. Well, what's their sort of general sort of view of that?
well, there's the philosophy of solipsism, which I've already referred to in a previous.
Run that by us again.
Okay, so solipsism is basically the fundamental basics. It's a philosophy which says that solipsism. You can only experience your own existence, and philosophers take that to encompass that you are the center of the universe.
Right.
In fact, you created the universe and everything in it.
Right.
So this conversation is a fabrication of my imagination. My viewers are a fabrication of my imagination.
So the whole thing's set up for you.
You are the center of the universe. Yeah. And when you think about it, you can't possibly experience anything only through your own existence, surely.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's some sense in that. But do we have a purpose to that? Probably not. No?
No. Well, you create your own purpose, or even you create the non-existence of a purpose.
Yeah, I think that's it, isn't it? If you ask somebody, who's sort of lived many years, what have you done with your life? I mean, everybody's going to come up with something a little bit different,
Well, how are you going to answer that? What have you done with your life?
Yeah, probably not enough, the classic underachiever. But then again, you need to have a benchmark in order to measure yourself against that. I mean, who are you comparing yourself to? What are you supposed to have done? It's all very well saying, well, I'm an underachiever. I mean, that's a great way of wriggling out of any question. But that doesn't actually explain anything. All it says is that, in your opinion, or in this case, my opinion, you haven't done perhaps as much as perhaps other people or yourself would have thought you should have done under whatever circumstances. But that doesn't help, shed any light on the actual meaning of what you're supposed to be doing. Well, let's ask you that. I mean, what have you done? Even less.
Well, thank you very much for that. It's a personal opinion. Have I done less? Yeah.
Okay, but let's put the question differently. I mean, what you have done, has it been meaningful?
Probably not.
Okay, and then again,
because I don't know how to pin down this
the measuring. Yeah. We don't have
meaningful. What is meaningful?
Yeah, I mean, if we knew that, you see, then we could all go out and say, well, all right, I need to be more meaningful. I need to be a little bit more like, sort of Mother Teresa or whoever you have in your mind that you should be, emulating. You'll be thinking about being more like this person or being a better person or whatever. I mean, but we don't have any real guidelines. We have moral guidelines, and we have financial guidelines. I mean, you need to have a certain amount of money to do a certain amount of things. I mean, they're nice because they help you sort of go through day to day. But is there anybody at the end of it checking all this on a list and saying, well, you've done well here, but you could have done a bit better here? I don't think there is there?
Well, I mean, the religious fraternity would claim that there is. Yeah. But then, there are there are thousands of religions out there.
Yeah, but that makes them a little bit more fortunate than us, doesn't it? In respect,
enviable, yes.
Yeah, I mean, because they have guidelines. I mean, you get rewarded, in their heavens, respective heavens, for being doing what the religion says you should be doing, and doing it well, or doing it properly, and therefore you'll be rewarded. I mean, isn't that great? I mean, wouldn't it be nice if we had that sort of, I was going to say in the real world, but I don't mean it. I mean, in day-to-day life, guidelines of what we should be doing to achieve a certain thing. We all know how we're going to make money, to go out and start a business, or work harder, or do this or do that, and education and what have you. We have those guidelines. But as far as having a mark out of 10 at the end of our lives, I mean, who's going to give us that? Anybody? Probably not.
Well, depends on which standpoint you're going to take, isn't it? Which religion you're going to subscribe to.
Or moral, or morality. I mean, are we going to look back and say, well, you behaved morally, or you were kind-hearted, or whatever measuring stick you're going to use?
Well, what's your measuring stick? When you get to the gates of, let's say, whatever it is, how are you going to look back?
Well, I mean, first of all, you can take the good and the bad, aren't you? Have I done more good than bad? That would be the obvious thing. And then how would you classify good and bad? Good things you've done, what are they? Doing good things for other people, for example, or, bad things, how is it effective? I mean, there's a whole bunch of things you can sort of throw into the mix.
Where'd you get that good and bad from?
Well, I don't know. It has to be, once again, something you've dreamed up yourself. But I think, once again, there would be some basic guidelines of good and evil. Let's say, maybe not good and bad. Yeah, I think so. But whether that adds any help to figuring out the meaning of the whole thing, I don't think it does. I think we have to dig a little bit deeper, don't we?
Well, I know it sounds so almost flippant, but when I wake up, I lie in bed and I can see the sun come up it shines into my bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And often I think, every morning I wake up and that sun rises in its same kind of trajectory. I don't know about the ins and outs of this, but we all know that the sun rises and it's there, and it's at a certain distance, and it gives us life. And when you put it in that kind of context, you kind of think there must be some, I say must, but that's a big thing going around, and it's there, and we take it for granted, and it rises in the morning. And I know it sounds a very stupid analogy, but we just constantly take this thing for granted, and it kind of, what's guiding this?
You're saying that this is our sort of, how we say, to spur us into action, or to galvanize us into doing something.
I mean,
more substantial.
The astronomers and the physicists out there, the bright people out there, they will tell us that this is all very finely tuned and very, sort of milliseconds this way or that way, and the whole thing collapses and falls apart.
Right.
I just find
so. You're saying that that means that we're significant after all.
I just have, I can't dismiss that there must be some kind of meaning that is out there.
Okay, so that would help us, because that follows a sort of logic, in as much as, because
don't you find that astonishing?
Yeah, I do. Well, absolutely, but at the same time, it doesn't help us, because we're not given any clues. In other words, it's kind of, well, we got this all set up for you boys, but we're not telling you what you're supposed to be doing with it.
Right, but doesn't the fact that it's all set up tell you something?
Yeah, it tells us that it's all set up, and here we are. We wake up in the morning, like you said, and the sun's shining through the window, and we're supposed to do something. And we've gone out and invented something for ourselves to do.
So,
and we kind of
so the meaning of life is all about giving yourself meaning.
Wow, that's
projecting meaning onto life.
I think that's as close as we've got, isn't it? I mean, you know, if somebody says, "Well, have you had a good day?" Well, define that. You did, okay, I made XYZ amount of dollars, or I had a good day because I enjoyed myself and I remained healthy and the things I did were enjoyable, blah, blah, blah. There's lots of different ways you can reflect on a day and be able to say to yourself, okay, so that was a successful day. Was it a meaningful day? Well, unless it was meaningful to me, then no.
You're a numbers man. You like your data. If you were to put money on this and say, you know, there is meaning to life, we just don't know about it, or alternatively, there's absolutely nothing, and you take a nihilist perspective, and there's no meaning. There's nothing. Where would you put your money?
Well, somewhere between the two. First of all, it's obvious that whatever the meaning is, we are not supposed to know about it. Otherwise, somebody would have told us or given us a much bigger clue. You know, like say, well, cold, warmer. You don't get any of that. When you wake up in the morning, like you said, you're very much on your own about what you're going to do, as to what you're going to do. So,
but there are people out. I'm sorry to get back to the religious thing again, but there are people out there who swear that they have the answer.
Great, good on them. They're very lucky, luckier than us, I would say.
Yeah, but what stops you from subscribing to that?
No, it's a faith, it's a belief, and you have to have the thing going on in your head which tells you that that's the one, which falls into place. I mean, religion's like that. I mean, the religious friends of ours, and there are many of them. You know, when I talk to them about how did you get started in this, it usually started with a life which was completely different from the one they're leading now. And, at some point, the penny dropped, let's say, in respect to how they feel. Doesn't relate to me, but it certainly did to them. And then they're now, conducting a life which to them makes real sense. The way they treat people, the way they behave, the way they worship, everything makes good sense to them. And they have a firm belief that this goes on in the next world. And you've got to envy that because, speaking from myself, I don't have that. I'm not ruling anything out. I'm just saying I don't have that, which makes, of course, what I'm doing day to day totally meaningless if I sat down and thought about it. But because I don't, then it's okay because, you wake up in the morning and you get on with whatever you have to do day to day. So you don't give it any thought. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I'm not so sure where I stand on all of this. I think I've taken a rather dimmer view, contrary to what I've just said about the sun, and it rising. I really don't know. Am I a nihilist and I just think there's absolutely nothing? Well, given what I've just said, I'd be contradicting myself.
Yeah, but if I ask you the same question you asked me, where's your money? For want of a better way of putting it.
Somewhere in the middle.
Right, exactly what I said.
Yeah,
let's hedge the bet.
I'd have to hedge the bet.
That one of those religions.
It doesn't help, though, does it?
No, of course not. No. But do we spend any time actually thinking about the meaning of life? Because no, we don't really, do we? I mean, we put it in today's subject, but
on a daily basis, no, because we're too busy wrapped up in our own little worlds, aren't we?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, for better or for worse, and important or unimportant.
So does that mean that we live basically meaningless existences?
Well, it does, but then we're not the only ones. I think everybody else does as well. I mean, if you met somebody for a drink after work and, you'd be chatting to them and he'll be talking about, maybe his spare bedroom, which he decorated at the weekend, his job, his family, his kids. I mean, there'd be something similar to what you're going to talk about, and that's what you'll be discussing. And that's how you would, how we say, measure your existence by those key things in your life as you go through life. And then, you take eras, educational era, work era, retirement era, family, this. There's lots of different segments of your life, and you'll be able to look at each segment and give yourself a score out of 10. I did okay in that, fluffed that one, did this, did that. For any purpose? Not really. Self-analysis, self-reflection. But thinking of a meaning? I doubt you're going to come up with that. Do you think so?
No, I'm just thinking back to the analogy of the size of the universe, the observable universe again. And I this is my reference point, if you like, for starting contemplation about this kind of subject. And the scientists that put this little video together, they estimate that even if humanity was eternal, there wouldn't be enough light years in it to see to the other side of the universe, the observable universe. I mean, again, it puts it into perspective, doesn't it?
What, the insignificance?
The insignificance of it all. I mean,
but you can't blame people for trying to find out or get an angle on the meaning of life.
Because
it would make life a little better for us if we knew what exactly we were supposed to be doing here, or the purpose of why we're here. I mean, we've already discussed what happens next and came up with absolutely no idea. Today we're discussing the meaning of life and struggling to find a sensible thing to say.
Yeah, but like all our videos, we kind of we take the perspective that it's a general chit chat, isn't it? And we try to
So you mean if we added sort of 3 or 4 more people to the round table here, we wouldn't be getting any closer to what we were trying to find out? I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, it's a big one for sure.
Would life be better if we knew what we were here for?
I was just thinking that when you were mentioning that, I was thinking, I'm not so sure.
No, would be sort of restricted, wouldn't we? Oh, can't be doing that. That's not what we're here for. That would be tricky, wouldn't it?
Well, I mean, often we've discussed death and would you like to know when you were dying and so forth. I know that's kind of going off on a tangent, but it's a similar kind of thing in a way. Whereas, would you like to know? Would you like to know what the meaning of life is? Because it could be anything.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of edge away from it, wouldn't you? Like you would about, when you're due to drop dead as well, you'd probably think, well, just let it be. It's not supposed to be, We're not supposed to know.
Well, that's about it, isn't it? That's all we can sum up, is that we're telling you what you already know here, that
nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
Yeah,
and as usual, let us know your thoughts and comments, and don't forget to subscribe.
Yeah, like and subscribe if you like chit-chatty videos, and we'll be back in a couple of days with another one for sure.
Okay, see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.